Welcome everyone to another edition of Play It Through, and on this edition it's Splatterhouse 2, brought to us by Namco for the Sega Genesis. Splatterhouse 2 is the sequel to the original Splatterhouse game that was released in arcades and had a few home console ports. There are not too many differences between Splatterhouse 1 and Splatterhouse 2. Splatterhouse 2 is just more of the gore-filled action that we enjoyed in the first game. As far as the storyline goes, Splatterhouse 2 takes place 3 months after the original Splatterhouse. The Terror Mask, which gave Rick his powers in the first game, broke at the end of Splatterhouse 1, but has now reformed. The Terror Mask haunts Rick in his dreams, giving him nightmares, telling him that Jennifer is still alive and is in the land of the dead, and that he must find the hidden house. There are some differences in the translation from the Japanese version to the American version. In the North American version of the game, it's perceived that you're actually going back to the original West Mansion in order to find Jennifer, but in fact, you're actually going to the hidden house, a separate mansion that's in the back of the West Mansion. The first level of Splatterhouse 2 actually takes place in the ruins of the West Mansion. As you saw, as one of the best moments of Splatterhouse 1, Rick's girlfriend Jennifer transformed into a monster and we had to defeat it, leaving Jennifer for dead. However, since we have been told that Jennifer can still be saved, our pretty much goal in this game is to travel into this hidden house, work our way into the depths of hell, and bring Jennifer back. In Splatterhouse 2, you can put in a password to go to any level you like, as well as with common with the SNES and Genesis era of games, there's an option menu with a sound test, the ability to change controls, and multiple difficulties. I will be playing on normal in this run of Splatterhouse 2, and the difficulties don't affect the ending of the game. You'll get the same ending no matter what difficulty you complete the game on. Our controls are the exact same from Splatterhouse 1. Your main things are your jump, and then you have your attack button. Very simple, but once again, it's all about the atmosphere and graphics when it comes to the Splatterhouse series. Weapons return, as you can see, and we have that great splash effect when we knock these enemies into the background. Just like Splatterhouse 1, it really comes down to memorization and playing the levels over and over again to anticipate what's coming ahead of you so you know what to do. You'll find that after you play the game a few times, you'll be able to go farther and farther without taking any damage in the game. After we walk through the ruins for a little while, we enter this room, where we get face to face with Bellyache, the first boss of the game. While Bellyache may seem pretty big and tough at first, our goal really is to get in close to him, watch out for when he charges out at us, and let the arcing amounts of vomit that come out of him go right over our head in an arcing motion. After only a few hits, his stomach will explode. Now be sure to stay away from him when it does explode because the acid that comes out can hurt you, just like some of the bosses from Splatterhouse 1. You're never quite sure it's over until you actually fade out and go to the next level. You can also see that unlike the TurboGrafx version, our mask is now white and it's more of a skull shape. In the Japanese version of the game, the mask actually has black stripes on the eyes, similar to a kabuki mask. The second level of the game begins in an elevator stage, where enemies will be falling on both the left and right sides of the screen, so it's pretty much going to have to come down to either being ready for anything that's going to fall on you, or when you memorize, the enemies are always going to fall at the same places every time you play. There's another elevator section later in the game that's much tougher than this one, so if you have trouble with this one, be prepared for later on. In the second part, we'll go from left to right again, but you can see there's a really cool background animation going on, giving this level a really nice effect. Be sure to watch out for enemies, especially when trying to prepare for jumps over the spike pits, and the spikes that come out of the ground in a different motion. Make sure that you take your time and take the right opportunity to go over them. As we move on, grab the bone item, and you'll see that you'll take these enemies and smash their head open every time you hit them. When you make it to the end, unfortunately we will drop our weapon, go down some stairs into the final part of level 2. This giant blue face is the boss of this level, and the real problem with them is the little skulls that shoot out and come around from the ceiling and try to drop down around you in different patterns. You have to memorize where they're going to come from and in what pattern they're going to go, and sometimes it's really almost impossible to be able to judge where they're going to come from, and you're probably going to take a hit or two. You have to smack him in the eyes when his eyes are actually open in order to do damage to him. So keep knocking out the skulls that fall out from the ceiling, and keep delivering hits. After only a few, his eyes will explode in an awesome display of gore, and you'll move on to level 3. Level 3 takes place along the Dark River. Now in this level, our enemies don't change up too much, but we have to be sure not to fall into the pits, which will hurt us. There's lots of water in this area and lots of enemies to attack when jumping over these pits. The fish are probably the most annoying, but when you know when they're about to come up, you can either avoid them, or of course attack them as soon as they come up. After we get past the Dark River, we enter into this shack, where we have to deal with a lot of these weird-looking blood puppets. You have a choice of multiple weapons, as they're both going to attack you at first. You have a chainsaw and a pair of scissors. When you defeat the pair of scissors, you'll actually be able to use it, and the same goes for the chainsaw. You may want to use the scissors in order to actually take out the chainsaw for the final hit. The chainsaw will easily help you in defeating the blood puppets as they drop from the ceiling. Each of them only take a few hits to take out, but they can be definitely very annoying at first. When you see them explode, you know you've defeated those, but then more are going to come from the ceiling. Try to stand in between. As you can see, there's planks on the ceiling in between each of the holes, so that you know that if you're standing in the middle, they hopefully won't drop directly onto your head. Once the final one has been defeated, you'll see the rest of them fall from the ceiling and just explode on you. You then have this big heart thing come out of the wall as our final little enemy here, which it'll just explode after only a hit or so. I'm not even positive if you actually have to hit it, but that blood effect that splatters all over the screen and then covers it down is one of the cooler effects in the game. Level 4 is on a bridge going towards this lost island that we're trying to get to, where the mansion's located. You're being chased by this giant enemy from behind you as you have to move slowly along the path, defeating enemies as they come from the front. Of course, if you lag behind, you will be hurt by the monster at the end, but it's not really too hard to keep moving on and take out everything in front of you since the enemies will be dying in one punch. If you didn't get enough of that monster yet, we'll have to deal with him again later on in the game. The second part of the level takes place in this